"Ain't much of a tip, sir, but thank you kindly." Maya Williams said it with a smile that barely held. Her fingers brushed over the single-dollar bill left on the table, crumpled at the corners. The man didn't look back. He rose, tall and straight, in a black wool coat that didn't belong in a place where the coffee cost $1.25, and refills were free. Maya stood there a moment, watching the dollar between her fingers, feeling the sting of heat, fresh, dull, and angry still radiating under the fabric on her arm. She hadn't dared check the burn. Not yet. Just an hour earlier, he had seen her. She hadn't realized it then, but the man in the corner booth, the one who never picked up his phone, never cracked a book, had been watching the whole thing. It was after the dinner rush. The rain hadn't let up, and the floor tiles near the door were slick with wet footprints. The bell above the entrance jingled, and in walked an old black man in a worn veteran's cap, jacket soaked through. Maya had seen him before Mr. Carter, she thought. He was polite, quiet, and always ordered the same thing: grilled cheese, no onions, cup of tomato soup. But that night, he just stood at the counter, hesitating. "Even in, Mr. Carter," Maya said gently. "Come in out the rain. You want your usual?" He lowered his head. "Ain't got it tonight, baby. Just..." Maya nodded without missing a beat. "Let me fix you something warm. You just sit." She brought him soup and half a sandwich, paid for it herself, like she'd done more than once before. 10 minutes later, Randy, the night manager, spotted it. His heavy boots stomped toward her behind the counter like a storm brewing. "Maya!" he barked, slamming the order ticket holder with his palm. "Are we running a soup kitchen now?" Maya turned, startled. "Sir, he's a regular. He served... I don't give a damn if he served George Washington. You serve who pays. You think this place prints money?" "He's hungry," she whispered. "It's just a bowl of soup. I'll cover." "You'll cover?" Randy laughed, mean and sharp. "With what? Your tips? From all your charity work?" She looked down. Her fingers trembled as they gripped the coffee pot. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She wasn't trying to defy him, just explain, but Randy wasn't listening. His hand moved fast, smacking the tray she held, sending it crashing back onto the counter. The soup spilled. The coffee sloshed. The mug shattered, and the hot liquid splashed onto Maya's forearm, soaking through her sleeve in an instant. She gasped, staggered back, bumping into the dish rack. Pain shot up her arm like electricity. Her breath hitched. She didn't scream, only pressed her lips together tight. "Clean it up," Randy snarled. "And next time, let the bums starve. You want to save the world? Do it on your own damn time." He stormed off, muttering something under his breath about damn bleeding hearts. Maya blinked hard, still trembling. Mr. Carter had already slipped out the door, shame in his eyes. From the corner booth, the man in the black coat watched it all. Silent. Unmoving. His eyes were unreadable. Now, an hour later, all he left was $1. Maya shook her head softly, pushing down the fresh wave of embarrassment crawling up her neck. She turned to clear the table. Coffee ring. A nearly untouched slice of pie, and beneath the plate, just barely showing, a folded note. White. Crisp. Out of place. She hesitated, looked around. Joe was still at the counter, telling his Blizzard in Montana story for the 5th time this month. Sarah, the nursing student, was asleep over her textbook. Randy had disappeared into the office, probably scrolling on his phone. She picked up the note, hands still shaking. "This isn't charity. This is a proposal. Come to Halston Corp. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Ask for Mr. Langford." Her brows drew together. Inside the fold, a business card. Thick, embossed, elegant. Langford Halston, CEO, Halston Corp. The name made her chest tighten. She'd read about Halston in the Atlanta Journal. They ran power grids, data systems, smart infrastructure stuff regular folks didn't touch but couldn't live without. Langford was old money that built new empires. The kind of man who didn't tip, the kind of man who didn't eat apple pie in roadside diners. She tucked the note into her apron, trying to still the flutter in her stomach. By the time her shift ended, It was nearly 2 a.m. Outside, the rain had eased into mist. She walked the 4 blocks to her apartment over the laundromat, her coat damp and clinging. The ache in her arm pulsed like a dull heartbeat. Inside, the apartment was quiet. Only the turtle-shaped nightlight glowed beneath Micah's bed. She peered in. He was asleep, one hand curled around his stuffed astronaut. She showered, wincing as warm water hit the burn. Then she sat at the kitchen table, unfolded the note again, and stared. 2:45 a.m. Her phone vibrated. A new email from Micah's school. Subject: Program tuition increase. Spring term. Cost: $2,200. Her bank balance: $246. Maya exhaled slowly. Her hand rested on the table, fingertips brushing the edges of the note. Her thoughts drifted to Mr. Carter, to the pain in her arm, to her son's quiet breathing behind the door. She didn't believe in fairy tales. But maybe, just maybe, this was something else. Not magic, just a crack in the wall, and maybe that was enough. If Maya's story touched you, drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Maybe someone nearby is watching with you too. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Maya stirred in her bed, her arm aching beneath the worn blanket. The burn throbbed a deep, steady pulse, just under the skin. She hadn't had the nerve to look at it in the mirror last night. Maybe she was afraid that if she saw the damage, she'd finally break. The swelling had spread along her forearm. A raw pink welt, shaped like shame. In the kitchen, the ancient coffee pot gurgled. It smelled like sleep deprivation and survival. She leaned against the counter. One arm pressed against her stomach, the other burned was tucked close, careful not to brush against the chipped formica. The apartment was small, just 2 rooms and a bathroom. The kind of place where you could hear your neighbors' arguments and the laundry machines below shook the floors every Thursday. Micah appeared in the doorway, still in his rocket-printed pajamas, hair sticking up at odd angles. "Morning, Mama," he said sleepily. "Hey, baby," she answered, mustering a smile. "You sleep all right?" He nodded and wandered over to the table, grabbing a piece of toast she'd made with the last of the bread. His fingers lingered near the crusts. He didn't like them, but he never complained. She sat across from him, watching him chew, small and solemn like always. "I dreamed about Jupiter again," he said, wiping crumbs from his mouth. "It had eyes this time." "Eyes, huh? That planet's keeping watch then." Micah grinned briefly, then looked down. "Can I still go to science camp next month?" Her heart twisted. The email from the school still sat unread in her inbox after the first glance. Tuition had nearly doubled. Their savings, such as it was, wouldn't even scratch it. "I'm gonna work on that," she said, brushing his hair back with her good hand. "We'll figure something out." He nodded. He always did. He was used to quiet disappointments. That alone broke her more than any bill ever could. After breakfast, Maya walked Micah to the bus stop. The streets were still wet from last night's rain, the sky the color of dull pewter. A neighbor across the street waved Mrs. Henderson, retired teacher, always up early with her cat and a cup of chamomile. At the curb, the bus squealed to a stop. Micah hugged her without needing to be asked. His arms wrapped gently around her middle. "Love you, Mama. Love you too, Starlight," she whispered. "Go shine." She watched until the bus disappeared around the bend, then turned back toward the apartment. The burn stung with every movement. Her eyes drifted toward the clock, 7:42 a.m. She still had time to back out. The note was still on the table. Folded neat. Tidy. Too clean for a life like hers. Halston Corp., 10 a.m. Ask for Mr. Langford. She changed clothes 3 times before settling on a faded navy dress, and her only blazer black, 2 buttons, sleeves slightly too short. It had been Darius's favorite, said it made her look like she could argue with senators and win. She tied her hair back and applied lipstick with a trembling hand. The burn, hidden beneath the sleeve, pulsed. She caught the #47 bus downtown, riding in silence among morning commuters in pressed suits and earbuds. She kept her hands folded in her lap, thumb brushing the edge of Langford's business card over and over like it might disappear. The Halston building rose above the city like it had grown from steel and glass itself. 40 floors of mirrored surfaces, sharp angles, and private power. She stood across the street for almost 5 minutes, staring. Men and women in tailored suits flowed in and out like water. No one looked lost. She was. Inside, the lobby was cathedral-like. Marble floors, glass walls, abstract sculpture that looked like a question mark. The receptionist barely glanced up. "Name?" she asked. "Maya Williams. I have a meeting." "With Mr. Langford." The woman's eyes shifted, pausing longer than expected. She tapped something into her tablet, frowned, then picked up the phone. "Please wait," she said curtly. Maya stood awkwardly in front of the desk, aware of every crease in her dress, every scuff on her shoes. Her arm ached. 2 minutes later, the receptionist hung up and, without looking up, said, "Take the elevator to the 38th floor. Left side." Maya nodded. "Thank you," she murmured. The elevator was silent, sleek, and mirrored on all sides. Her reflection stared back at her, too tired, too tense. A woman who looked like she didn't belong. She held her bag tight against her chest. At floor 38, the doors slid open to a hallway of dark wood, recessed lighting, and air that smelled faintly of leather and expensive cologne. A man in a tailored suit approached immediately. "Miss Williams, right this way." He led her past glass offices, quiet conversations, the clicking of keyboards. The people didn't look at her, but they didn't need to. She felt the difference in every step. They stopped at double glass doors. He knocked twice, opened them. "Mr. Langford will see you now." Maya stepped in. The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek lines, minimalist furniture. It could have been the set of a movie. Langford stood behind a desk the size of her kitchen. Today he wore a gray suit, no tie, sharp jaw, salt and pepper hair, expression unreadable. He didn't greet her right away. Instead, he walked to the side table where a modern espresso machine waited. "Coffee?" he asked. Maya hesitated. "Yes, please." "I good." He poured 2 cups. No assistance. No pretense. Just coffee. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, handing her a cup. "I almost didn't. I saw what happened last night, with the old man, with your manager." Her throat tightened. "That wasn't supposed to, he doesn't like waste." "You weren't wasting anything," Langford said calmly. "You gave him food. You paid for it. Then you got punished for it." "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said quickly. "It's just, no one else was going to help him." Langford studied her, his expression unchanged. "That's exactly why I left the note." She froze, fingers tightening around the cup. "I don't offer opportunities lightly, Miss Williams," he continued. "But I need someone like you, someone who sees people even when the world doesn't." Maya set her cup down, fingers trembling slightly. "What do you want from me?" Langford leaned forward slightly. "Something simple. A chance. He slid a folder across the desk. "Take this, read it. Come back tomorrow if you're interested." Maya opened it slowly. The words on the first page stopped her breath. Community Director, Second Light Initiative. Salary, $75,000. Year. Benefits, full tuition scholarship. She stared at it, chest tight. "This is too much," she whispered. Langford's voice was quiet. "No, it's just the right amount. If you're ready." Maya didn't sleep that night, not really. She lay in bed, fully dressed in her faded t-shirt and cotton pajama pants, staring at the ceiling as the sounds of the city filtered through the cracked window. Sirens in the distance, tires sloshing through puddles, the metallic clatter of the laundromat's after-hours delivery. Her burned arm throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat, though she had finally cleaned it, wrapped it in gauze, and taken a couple aspirin. The folder lay open on the coffee table across the room, as if daring her to touch it again. It hadn't moved in hours, but it felt like it was watching her. Community Director, Second Light Initiative, $75,000 a year. Benefits, full tuition for Micah. It sounded like a dream, like something her mother might have whispered to her during one of those long-ago Sunday mornings. "The Lord will provide, baby, but you gotta show up." But Maya knew the world didn't work like that. Not for women like her. Not for black single mothers with visible scars and invisible ones too. Opportunities like this came with strings, or cameras, or some cruel joke waiting to unravel. At 5:30 a.m., her alarm buzzed. She silenced it before it could wake Micah. But he was already up, sitting cross-legged on the couch with his sketch pad, drawing quietly by the soft light of the turtle nightlight. He insisted on using every morning, even though he said he wasn't scared of the dark anymore. Maya sat beside him, watching him draw what looked like Saturn bright rings and tiny moons, labeling them in his neat, careful handwriting. "You're up early," she said, voice low. He didn't look up. "I couldn't sleep." "Yeah, me neither." He finally glanced at her arm, wrapped in clean gauze now. "Does it hurt?" "A little," she said, brushing his cheek with her good hand. "But it'll be okay." They sat like that for a minute. No cartoons, no noise, just the quiet rhythm of pencils on paper and hearts trying not to break. "Micah," she said softly. "Can I talk to you about something?" He nodded. She took a breath. "I met someone yesterday. Someone important. He offered me a new job." He stopped drawing. "Better than the diner?" "Way better. Daytime hours, more money, more time with you." His eyes widened just slightly, like he was afraid to believe her. "But," she continued, "it's a big change. It's in a big building, and I'd be working with people who don't know me yet, people who might not like me, people who might say things." Micah looked down. "Like what the kids at school say sometimes." Her heart clenched. "Yeah, like that." He nodded slowly. "But if it means you come home for dinner, I want that." Tears pressed at the edges of her vision. "You sure?" He looked at her then, those big, serious eyes that reminded her so much of Darius. "You help people, Mama. That's what you do. You help that old man. You help me every day. Maybe now you can help more people." Her breath caught. She pulled him into a hug, pressing her face into his hair. "Lord, I don't know how I got so lucky with you." He mumbled into her shoulder. "I got lucky first." By the time the sun was fully up, Maya was dressed and on the phone. "Mr. Langford's office," the assistant answered. "Hi, this is Maya Williams. I'd like to schedule a follow-up." There was a pause. "Hold, please." A beat later, Langford himself picked up. "Miss Williams, I've thought about your offer," she said carefully. "I'm not saying yes. Not yet. Go on. If I do this, I don't want charity. I don't want to be your token success story. You wouldn't be. And I'm not taking the scholarship for Micah unless I prove I can do the job. I want a 6-month trial period. I want to work hard and earn it." There was silence on the line. Then, "Anything else?" "One more thing," she said. "I keep 1 shift a week at the diner." Langford's voice softened. "To remember where you came from? To remember why this matters." Another pause. Then, "Deal." She let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "You start in 2 weeks," he said. "We'll be ready." She hung up, hand trembling but chest lighter. She looked around the apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the clunky heater, the stack of unpaid medical bills in the corner. It was still hers, still home, but maybe now, there could be more. She turned back to Micah, who was now reading a book on planets upside down. Just the way he liked. "You want to go to the library later?" she asked. He nodded. "Can I check out 3 books this time?" She smiled. 3 books. 1 hot cocoa. And maybe a new start. 2. Maya stood on the curb across from Halston Corp., gripping her purse strap like it might float away if she let go. The sky above Atlanta was a hard, polished blue, unforgiving, cloudless, and far too bright for how she felt inside. Her arm still throbbed beneath the sleeve of her blazer, the burn pulsing in time with her nerves. She inhaled slowly, tasting the morning chill mixed with the faint scent of exhaust. Across the street, Halston Tower sliced into the sky like a blade, 40 floors of mirrored glass and steel, reflecting sunlight so sharply it made her squint. Men and women in tailored suits streamed inside, shoes clicking with confidence she couldn't even pretend to have. Everything about the building looked expensive, purposeful, untouchable. It was a world meant for people who carried briefcases, not scratch-off lottery tickets, and certainly not for waitresses earning $2.13 an hour before tips. You came all this way, she whispered to herself. Ain't no turning back now. She waited for the traffic light to change, her heart pounding as she crossed the street. Every step felt too loud, as if the city could hear her and was asking what business she had being here. When she reached the glass doors, she caught a glimpse of her reflection navy dress, slightly frayed around the hem, blazer sleeves too short, curls pulled back tight to look professional. She hoped it was enough. She hoped she was enough. Inside, the lobby was colder than she expected. The air conditioning brushing goosebumps across her burned arm, marble floors stretched in every direction, polished so bright she could see the blurred shape of herself in them. A towering sculpture stood in the middle, one long silver curve suspended as if defying gravity. She wondered how much it cost. Probably more than her entire apartment building, laundromat included. The receptionist barely looked up. Blonde hair, sharp features, perfect eyeliner. She wore the kind of smile that came pre-programmed with her job. "Good morning," Maya said, trying not to sound as nervous as she felt. "My name is Maya Williams. I think I have a meeting with Mr. Langford." The receptionist blinked. Not rude, just surprised, as if she'd expected a different kind of person to say that name. "One moment," the woman replied, tapping on her tablet. Her manicured finger hovered mid-air before she lifted the phone handset and spoke quietly. She paused, listened, then put the phone down. "Please take the elevator to the 38th floor. Mr. Langford is expecting you." Expecting her. The words felt unreal. Maya managed a polite nod, then stepped into one of the elevators, sleek, lined with mirrors. The kind of place where you couldn't escape your own reflection. She pressed 38, and tried not to fidget. 30 floors up. Her ears popped. She swallowed hard. The silence was so complete she could hear her pulse in her ears. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway lined with dark wood, subtle lighting, and small touches that reminded her of luxury hotels she had only ever seen on TV. A young man in a charcoal suit approached her. "Miss Williams, right this way." "In-see." He didn't look annoyed, didn't judge yet. Maya still felt as though she was walking through someone else's life, as he guided her down the hallway, past conference rooms where professionals hovered over screens larger than her kitchen table. She forced herself not to stare. They stopped in front of double glass doors. The man knocked twice, then pulled them open. "Mr. Langford will see you now." Her legs felt oddly heavy as she stepped inside. Langford's office was enormous, more like a museum than a workspace. The far wall was all glass, offering a sweeping view of the city. Highways like ribbons, buildings like chess pieces, the hazy horizon stretching for miles. Langford stood beside his desk, sleeves rolled to his elbows, reviewing a document. He looked different today, less pristine, almost human. When he saw her, he set the paper aside and gestured her forward. "Miss Williams, thank you for coming." His voice was steady, calm, the kind of voice that didn't waver, didn't rush. She wasn't sure how a man like that existed in the same world as hers. "I appreciate the invitation," she said, forcing her voice not to shake. He moved toward the espresso machine near the window. "Coffee?" She hesitated. "Yes, thank you." He prepared it himself, which surprised her. She expected some assistant to appear from thin air, but he moved deliberately, measuring grounds, pouring with precision. When he handed her the cup, she saw his eyes drop briefly to the edge of her sleeve, where a faint red mark peeked through. The burn. She tensed. "Your arm," he said quietly. "How bad is it?" "It's fine," she lied. "Really? It didn't look fine last night," he replied, taking a seat. "May I assume you came despite it hurting?" She swallowed. "I came because you asked me to." His gaze was steady. "You came because you're responsible, and you care." End quote. She didn't know what to do with that praise wrapped in observation. Darius used to see her that way. Not many others had. Langford opened a folder, the same one she'd taken home, and reread until nearly dawn. "You said you didn't want charity," he began. "I don't offer any. I'm just not sure why me," she admitted. "People like you don't usually notice people like me." "On the contrary," Langford said. My mother was a woman like you. She worked 3 jobs. People saw through her, overlooked her, dismissed her. Until someone didn't. She blinked. I didn't know. You weren't meant to, he replied. This isn't about sentiment. It's about capacity. You showed exactly what I look for. In a waitress, in a leader. Her stomach tightened. I think you've got the wrong impression of me. I don't think so. He slid a page toward her. Bullet points. Responsibilities. Budget oversight. Outreach partnerships. Training modules. Meetings with nonprofit networks. It was overwhelming. I've never done anything like this, she whispered. You've done more than you realize, Langford said. You saw a man in pain and fed him. You absorbed humiliation so he wouldn't. You went home, burned, and still showed up for your child. That's leadership. Her throat tightened, a lump forming she couldn't swallow down. I want you to think about something, Miss Williams, he said. When was the last time someone offered you a chance without conditions, without judgment? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Exactly, he said softly. This is that chance. Silence stretched between them long, fragile, important. Finally, Maya nodded once, slowly. I'll be back tomorrow, she said. For my answer, Langford didn't smile fully, but something faint touched the edge of his expression. Respect, maybe. I'll be here. And, as Maya left the office, riding the elevator down through the towering glass building, she felt something shift inside her. Small, barely there, but undeniable. Possibility. Maya sat on the back steps of the laundromat that evening, her legs tucked up beneath her, her burned arm resting gently on her lap. The gauze had loosened, and she could feel the raw skin beneath it throbbing with the pulse of another long day. The hum of washing machines vibrated through the concrete beneath her feet, and the soft rumble was oddly comforting, like the distant purr of something alive but non-threatening. She stared out into the alley where a few cardboard boxes had blown against the fence. A stray cat picked its way around them with elegance only strays seemed to master. Somewhere behind her, inside the apartment, Micah was building a paper model of the Mars rover with cardboard, scissors, and a roll of Scotch tape he was strictly told not to waste, but always did. She smiled faintly at the thought. The folder from Halston Corp. was in her lap again. She had brought it out here with her, away from the dishes, the bills, and the aching reality of their life. She had read every word twice this time, underlined things in pencil, circled the word benefits like it might change color if she stared hard enough. What did benefits even mean anymore? It had been years since she'd had health insurance. She was always one bad shift, one spill, one broken ankle away from losing it all. There was a time, before Darius passed, when she thought the American dream was a thing you worked for and eventually earned. But time and grief, and the rent due every first of the month, had chipped away at that dream until it became something distant, almost mythic. Now here it was again, not in a dream, but in the form of a black folder and a billionaire with sharp eyes who saw her when she thought no one did. Mama? Micah's voice brought her back. He was standing just inside the screen door, holding up the Mars rover proudly. You forgot the antenna, she teased gently. He grinned. It broke off, but I fixed it with a twist tie. NASA should hire you. He came and sat beside her, resting his elbow on her knee, leaning his head gently against her shoulder. You're thinking again, he said. I'm always thinking. I know, but this is the big kind of thinking, the kind with a face. She chuckled, startled by the accuracy. It's a big decision, she said. He looked up. Is it scary? She considered the question. Yeah, it is. It fees night, but it could be good, right? It could be great, she said. Or it could go wrong. I might not belong there. You belong everywhere, he said without missing a beat. Her throat tightened. You know what, Starlight? I needed to hear that. They sat in silence a moment. The sun had started to sink, painting the buildings in hues of orange and gold. A breeze lifted the edges of the folder, fluttering them like bird wings. What if they don't like me? She asked, almost to herself. Micah shrugged. Then they don't know how lucky they are. Maya laughed quietly. wiping her eye before the tear fell. "You sure you're only 10? "Pretty sure," he replied, with a crooked smile that reminded her so much of his father it hurt. That night, after Micah fell asleep, his Mars rover parked proudly on the nightstand. Maya packed her bag carefully. She laid out the best outfit she had, the same navy dress, pressed with extra care, and the blazer she'd fixed with 2 new buttons. She tucked the folder into her purse, just in case they needed her to sign anything. She also brought a small notepad, a pen, and a copy of Micah's latest school project, folded neatly. She didn't know why, maybe it gave her courage. The next morning, she rose early, made breakfast, braided her hair, checked the bus schedule twice. At 8:45, she kissed Micah goodbye at the door and stepped out into the rising light of downtown Atlanta. By 9:58 a.m., she stood once more in the Halston Corp. lobby. This time, she didn't hesitate. The receptionist looked up, recognizing her now. "Mr. Langford is expecting you," the woman said with a nod, already pressing the elevator button. Floor 38, same hallway, same glass doors. This time, when the assistant knocked and opened the door, Maya stepped in without being told. Langford looked up from his tablet. He didn't smile, not fully, but there was something warm in his gaze. Measured, but real. "You came back." "I did. Rekidsa." He gestured to the seat across from him. "May I assume you've made your decision?" Maya sat down, smoothing her dress carefully. "Yes. I've decided to accept the offer with one condition." Langford raised an eyebrow. "Go on. I want this to be real. I don't want to be a story for your next shareholder meeting. I don't want cameras or marketing campaigns or a 'look what we did' article in Forbes. You think I'd use you?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I've been used before, and I'm not walking into anything blind." Langford nodded slowly, as though her words didn't offend him but intrigued him. "You'll have my word," he said. "Your story is your own. This is not a charity project. This is a partnership, one you've earned." She looked at him hard, eyes narrowing. "Then I'm in." He extended a hand across the desk. She hesitated for only a second before taking it. His grip was firm, respectful, not dominating, not condescending, just steady. "Welcome to Halston Corp, Miss Williams." Maya felt something shift deep in her chest, a door cracking open, light spilling through after a long, dark tunnel. Maybe it wasn't a rescue. Maybe it was just the next chapter. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Maya stepped out onto the 27th floor, the home of the Second Light Initiative, Langford's experimental community outreach project, nestled inside the sleek empire of Halston Corp. It was her first official day. She wore her navy dress again, freshly pressed, and had borrowed a pair of low black heels from Mrs. Henderson upstairs, who claimed they'd been sitting in her closet since 1994, waiting for someone worth wearing them. Maya's blazer sleeves were still too short, but today, she wore them like armor. The office space was surprisingly different from the sterile upper floors. Here, the environment was warmer, muted earth tones, soft lighting, and framed photos of neighborhoods, kids' murals, and smiling seniors. There was even a coffee station in the corner with a handmade "Good Morning Team" sign tacked to the wall. Still, her palms were sweating. A woman in her early 50s approached, tall and fit with gray-streaked hair pulled into a braid. She wore a soft brown cardigan over a crisp blouse and black slacks. Sensible but confident. "You must be Miss Williams," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Claire Holloway, project director here." Maya shook it. Grateful, the woman's smile was warm, not polite. "It's good to meet you, ma'am. Call me Claire. We're not big on formalities down here." She nodded toward the open office space. "Come on. I'll show you around." They walked past rows of desks, some occupied by people typing away on laptops, others by folks deep in conversation over charts and printed community feedback reports. No one looked up immediately, but Maya felt the glances anyway, quick, quiet assessments. New face, new variable. "This floor used to be a forgotten corner of the company," Claire said as they walked. "Langford turned it into a lab not for science, but for hope. Second Light was his idea, but we built it. block by block. Maya nodded, grateful to hear the pride in Claire's voice. What kind of work do you do here? Exactly. A bit of everything. Food access programs, after-school centers, housing advocacy, job skills training. All funded through Halston, but designed with community voices. The idea is to listen before acting. Listening, Maya said softly. Imagine that. Claire turned to her with a sideways smile. Langford tells me you've done a lot of that. Listening. Seeing things others don't. I don't know about a lot, Maya said. But I've seen people get forgotten. Ignored. Good, Claire said. Then you're already ahead of half the folks who walk in here with degrees and no spine. They reached a small office, a window, a desk, and a chair that creaked when Maya sat in it. A filing cabinet stood open, half full. There was a tiny plant on the windowsill with a tag reading, "Do not name me. I'm a cactus. I'll disappoint you." Maya smiled. "This'll be yours," Claire said. "Don't worry. It looks sad now, but so did I my first week." Maya turned in her chair slowly. "What exactly do you want me to do here?" Claire leaned against the doorframe. "Officially, you're the community liaison manager. Unofficially, you're our connection to the people outside these walls. We want to know what they're facing, and not just from surveys. We want the hard truth." "And what if the truth is ugly?" Maya asked. "Then we build from it," Claire said. And for a second, Maya believed her. They spent the next 2 hours reviewing paperwork, contacts, and project briefs. Claire walked her through 3 ongoing efforts: an Eastside Food Co-op partnership, a GED support group for single parents, and an early intervention program for high school students with behavioral referrals. Every one of them felt familiar to Maya. Not in the details, but in the people they touched. "I'm going to introduce you to the team," Claire said around noon. "But be warned, some folks here are real sharp. One, in particular." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Monica Green," Claire said. "She's been here since day one, smart, driven, and very protective of what we've built. She doesn't warm up fast. Let me guess she thinks I'm some PR stunt." Claire shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time she said it, but she's fair. Maya nodded. "Good. I don't want easy. I want real." They entered the shared workspace, and Claire clapped her hands lightly. "Team," quick moment. Heads popped up. Coffee mugs paused mid-sip. Claire gestured to Maya. "This is Maya Williams, our new liaison. She'll be heading up community feedback and partner engagement." There was polite applause, nods, 1 or 2 smiles. Then a tall woman with tightly coiled hair and flawless posture stood from her desk. "You ever run a housing clinic before, Miss Williams?" she asked. Not unkind, but cool. "No, ma'am." "Policy background?" "No." "Nonprofit management?" "No," Maya said, then added gently, "But I know how it feels to be on the other side of a locked door." The room quieted. Monica studied her for a beat longer than necessary, then gave a short nod and returned to her seat. Claire looked pleased. "Well, that's more than I usually get out of her." By 4 p.m., Maya had reviewed 3 project files, fielded a handful of emails, and survived a lukewarm office lunch that tasted like budget approval delays. Her head spun with acronyms, grant timelines, and community assessment metrics. But beneath it all, something steadier had started to take hold. She could do this, not flawlessly, not without mistakes, but with purpose. As she gathered her bag to leave, she passed Langford in the hallway, his phone pressed to his ear. He paused, nodded once, and spoke to her softly as he walked past. "Good start." 2 words, but they grounded her. Maya stepped out into the cool Atlanta evening, heels clicking against pavement. The weight of doubt still present, but quieter now. In its place, a different burden had begun to rise. Responsibility, and, just beneath it, the faintest flicker of belief. 2 weeks passed, and Maya had begun to build a rhythm at second light. The buzz of early mornings no longer rattled her. The office hum became a familiar background song. Her once dreaded cubicle had transformed into a modest command center, a bulletin board now full of handwritten notes, school flyers, and names of families she'd spoken to from the east side, all written in her careful, slanted handwriting. But today, something was off. It started with a phone call. She was halfway through drafting a community proposal for expanding weekend food access in low-income zip codes when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Miss Williams?" a tired voice said on the other end. "This is Nate Johnson from the Parker Street Tenants Association." Maya sat up straighter. "Yes, Mr. Johnson. I remember you. You came to the listening session last Thursday." "I did. That's why I'm calling. You might want to come down here." Her fingers tensed. "Is something wrong?" There was a pause. "Depends on what you call wrong. There's a truck outside right now. Unmarked. Looks like it belongs to development contractors. Word is they're scouting the building. Surveyors showed up this morning without warning." Her stomach tightened. Parker Street was supposed to be protected. Langford had promised as much in the last team meeting, a no-touch zone, while Second Light assessed the building's historic preservation status. Evictions weren't even on the table. "I'm on my way," she said. The air in Parker Street had always smelled faintly of dust and rain. The buildings were old, early 1900s, red brick softened by decades of sun and community cookouts. Maya knew the neighborhood well now. Mrs. Elkins on the second floor sold sweet potato pies on weekends. Curtis, who used a wheelchair, hosted domino nights every Friday. Kids played soccer in the alleyways with trash cans for goals. But today, it was quiet. Too quiet. She pulled up just as a white panel van drove away, leaving behind two men in neon safety vests speaking to a clipboard-wielding woman in heels, far too clean for these sidewalks. "Excuse me?" Maya called, approaching with her badge clipped to her jacket. "Maya Williams, Halston Community Liaison. What's going on here?" The woman turned. She was young, sharply dressed, and clearly annoyed at the interruption. "We're conducting a routine property assessment," she said. "Company directive, nothing more." "Which company?" Maya asked. She hesitated a second too long. Crescendo Urban Development. That name twisted in Maya's gut. She'd heard it in whispers in cautious conversations around town about rising rents and urban revitalization. It was the same company that had purchased 3 lots on the south side last year under dummy corporations before flipping them into luxury condos. "This building isn't for sale," Maya said evenly. The woman smiled without warmth. "That's not your concern. It is now." The men in vests exchanged looks but said nothing. Maya stepped forward, pulling out her phone and snapping a photo of the woman's ID badge. "I'm reporting this to Mr. Langford and our legal team. Any unauthorized assessment of protected properties violates Halston's current community agreements." For a second, the woman's polished smile cracked. "We'll be in touch," she said, turning quickly and signaling the men to follow. As they left, Nate Johnson came up beside her, breathing heavy. "You scared 'em off. That was something." "I don't know if I scared them or just delayed them," Maya said, still watching the van disappear. "But it's a start." Back at Halston, she stormed into the 38th floor, bypassing reception and heading straight for Langford's office. She didn't knock. He looked up, surprised, setting aside his tablet. "Maya? You told me Parker Street was safe." He stood slowly. "It is." "No," she said, voice rising. "It was. Until Crescendo Urban Development sent scouts this morning." Langford's face changed like a wall slamming down behind his eyes. "Crescendo?" he repeated. "I took photos, got badge numbers, but they were already halfway through the property." He moved behind his desk, typing quickly. "That's not possible. Crescendo doesn't have a contract with us, or at least they shouldn't." "I'm mad. You need to find out who opened that door," she said. "Because someone did. And I've got families calling me in tears right now." Langford's fingers froze over the keyboard. "This didn't come from me. Or Claire." She studied him. "Then someone higher up is playing a different game." He looked up. "I'll find out. Today." But Maya wasn't done. "I want clearance to meet with the City Housing Board. If Halston's name is being used for displacement, we need to set the record straight publicly." Langford hesitated. "That puts a target on your back." "I'm not afraid of targets. I've had one on me my whole life. But I won't let this program turn into another lie people tell poor neighborhoods to keep them quiet." He nodded slowly. "You'll have everything you need. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Maya? She looked back. You're not here because I felt sorry for you, he said. You're here because you don't blink when it matters. She didn't blink now either. Good, because I'm just getting started. That night, Maya sat at the kitchen table, typing up her incident report with Micah asleep in the next room. Her burned arm throbbed as she moved, but she didn't slow down. Not this time. On the desk sat a flyer she'd picked up earlier, one of Crescendo's glossy mock-ups showing Atlanta's new skyline. Not a single black face on it, not a single family, just rooftop pools and yoga decks. She scribbled something in pen across the top of the flyer. Not here. Not on my watch. Then she opened a blank document and began to write. Monday arrived heavy and overcast. The kind of gray Atlanta morning that seemed to press down on the buildings, making everything feel slower, more uncertain. Rain tapped quietly against the wide windows of Halston Corp's 27th floor, and the usual hum of the office felt muted. Maya stepped into the workspace early, coffee in hand, but her usual greeting nods were met with distracted eyes. Whispers followed her as she made her way to her desk, low voices that quieted too quickly, glances that shifted away the moment she met them. Something was off. Claire passed her in the hallway near the copier and gave her a quick, tight smile. You all right? Maya asked, lowering her voice. Claire hesitated. We'll talk after the 10 a.m. sync. That didn't sit right. At 10:02, the weekly team meeting began in the common room, a rectangular space with mismatched chairs, a squeaky whiteboard, and a wall-mounted screen. Claire stood at the front, clipboard in hand, her calm presence steadying the room like it always did. But the air was different, tense, like a storm hadn't yet broken. Before we get into this week's outreach calendar, Claire said, we need to address something. I was due. Maya glanced up from her notepad. Claire looked directly at her. Maya, would you mind explaining what happened Friday at Parker Street? The room shifted. Some backs stiffened. Monica Green crossed her arms. Maya sat up straighter, her palms suddenly cold. I got a call from Nate Johnson, she began, eyes scanning the room. Surveyors from Crescendo Urban Development were on site without warning. I intervened, took down credentials, and reported it to Mr. Langford. Doing free one. Monica spoke up, her voice sharp. Did you notify the team before acting? There wasn't time, Maya said. They were already inside the building. I did what I thought was right. And now we're getting emails from Crescendo's legal team accusing us of interference, Monica snapped. Maya's stomach dropped. They're saying you threatened their contractors and took unauthorized photos on private property. Monica continued. That puts the entire initiative at risk. That building isn't private, Maya said firmly. It's a legacy site under pending historical review. They had no right to be there. Maybe, Monica replied, but you acted unilaterally. You didn't go through proper channels. Claire stepped in. Let's be clear. Maya wasn't wrong to respond. But what we're dealing with now is perception. Crescendo is powerful. They play dirty. Maya clenched her jaw. So what should I have done? Watched them scare seniors out of their homes? Waited for a meeting next Thursday while families got eviction notices? Silence, a heavy kind. Then a voice piped up from the back. Devon, one of the data analysts. If Crescendo's pulling strings inside Halston, maybe the problem isn't Maya. A few murmurs of agreement followed. Monica's eyes narrowed. We're not saying she's the enemy. But when you represent Second Light, your actions ripple. We have to be strategic. Maya stood, heart pounding. You want strategy? Here's some. If we keep playing nice with people like Crescendo, this whole program turns into a band-aid over a bullet wound. We need to be bolder. Faster. I'm not here to make anyone comfortable. I'm here to protect the people we say we serve. Claire stepped in. All right. That's enough for now. Let's cool off. Maya, I'd like to speak with you privately. The meeting adjourned with mumbled goodbyes. No one made eye contact. Claire's office was quiet, filled with the smell of cinnamon tea. You didn't do anything wrong, she said, once the door closed. But you did stir the water. Maya leaned against the wall. Is that not what I was hired for? Claire looked up. Yes. But you're in a world that's allergic to truth. And Crescendo's reach goes further than we thought. Maya crossed her arms. How far? Claire hesitated. Langford started this initiative to protect the city from exactly this kind of development. But Halston's board isn't unified. Some of them want to partner with Crescendo. Quietly, discreetly. So I'm expendable, Maya said flatly. No, Claire said, voice steady. But you've just stepped into something bigger and messier. Maya exhaled. Do I still have your support? Claire didn't flinch. You always did. And, that night, as Maya walked into her apartment, Micah ran up to her, notebook in hand. Look what I did, he grinned, flipping to a page showing a cartoonish building with people on balconies and a big sign that read, Home for Everyone. She crouched beside him, marveling at the colored pencil lines. This is beautiful, baby. It's our building, he said, but safe and fun. She kissed his forehead, blinking away a sudden sting behind her eyes. That's the dream, huh? He looked up. You're building it now, right? She held him close, her voice a whisper. I'm trying. Meanwhile, in a sleek office high above the city, Langford stood at the window, speaking into a phone. Get me the full board meeting moved up. I don't care if they're in Europe, and I want every file on Crescendo's recent acquisitions, especially Parker Street. He hung up, staring out at the glittering skyline. Maya, he muttered to himself, you'd better be ready. Because this war just got personal. It is not a rising CS. 3 days later, Langford invited Maya to dinner. The message came through Claire's office in the late afternoon. Short, direct. Dinner. My residence. 7 p.m. Friday. Car will pick you up. No agenda. Just a conversation. Maya stared at the text, rereading it like it might change. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake. Then she remembered who she was dealing with. Langford didn't do things accidentally. By 6:55 on Friday evening, a black Lincoln pulled up outside her apartment building. Micah watched from the window, his face pressed against the glass. You sure this isn't, like, a trap? He joked, nudging her gently. Maya smoothed the dress. Claire had loaned her a soft, deep green with sleeves long enough to cover the healing scar on her arm. If it is, I'll fight my way out with a steak knife, she said, kissing his forehead. You be good for Mrs. Henderson. The car was sleek, quiet, and smelled faintly of cedarwood. She sat in the back, unsure if she should look out the window or pretend she did this sort of thing all the time. Langford lived on the north side of the city, in a gated neighborhood with winding driveways and hedges trimmed like sculptures. His home wasn't a mansion in the gaudy sense. It was clean-lined, modern, and low to the ground, glass and stone, quiet wealth. The driver opened her door. Maya stepped out into the fading golden light. Langford greeted her at the door himself. No staff, no butler, just him in a button-down shirt and slacks, sleeves rolled to his forearms. Miss Williams, he said with a nod. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't, she said honestly. I would have understood if you hadn't. He led her inside. The house was tasteful art on the walls, shelves of old books, and large windows that let the sunset in like a guest. The dining area was simple. A long walnut table, 2 place settings, and a bottle of wine breathing between them. Hope you're hungry, he said, gesturing toward the open kitchen. I made dinner. She blinked. You cooked? I can follow instructions, he said with a faint smirk. Chicken marsala, roasted asparagus, and garlic potatoes. She raised an eyebrow. Color me impressed. They sat, and for a while, it was quiet, forks clinking, the occasional hum of conversation about nothing dangerous. The meal was excellent. More importantly, it was real. No servers, no scripts. Halfway through dessert, a modest slice of key lime pie, Langford finally leaned back, his eyes steady. You've shaken up a lot of things, Maya. She set her fork down carefully. That was never my plan. I know, he said. But you don't step into fire and stay clean. She looked at him. Are we still talking about Parker Street? Yes. And no. He stood, walking over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The skyline shimmered in the distance. A sea of lights under a rising moon. When I was 26, he said slowly, I bought my first building, a rundown complex in Vine City. I thought I was saving it. Turned out, I was the one tearing it apart. She waited, listening. I trusted the wrong contractor. He started evictions without my sign-off. By the time I caught it, people were gone. Whole families. I spent years trying to fix it, throwing money at the wound, but the damage was already done. You're not that person now, she said softly. He turned to face her. No. But I never forgot the look in a woman's eyes when she asked me where her children were supposed to sleep that night. She looked like you. Maya swallowed hard. You think I'm here because I remind you of someone? I think you're here because you are someone, he said. And because you speak truth when others stay silent. There was a long pause, the kind filled with things neither of them knew how to say. Then she asked the question that had lingered since day one. Why me? Langford sat down again, leaning in slightly. Because you don't want power. You want justice. And people like that are rare in rooms like these. She studied him, uncertain. And what do you want? His gaze didn't flinch. To prove I can be more than the man I used to be. Another silence settled between them. But this one was softer. I'm not here to play games, Maya said at last. I'm not interested in corporate dances or image rehab. Good, he said, because I'm not offering you a game. I'm offering you a fight with a real shot at changing things. She nodded slowly. Then I'm staying. But I won't be quiet. I'm counting on it. He poured them both another glass of wine. As the moon rose higher outside, they talked not about budgets or meetings, but about legacy, fear, and what it meant to raise a child in a city that didn't always make space for people like them. By the time she left, it was nearly midnight, and for the first time in years, Maya felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was building something. Monday morning brought with it a chill in the air and a subtle shift in Maya's stride. She stepped off the elevator on the 27th floor, not as the unsure newcomer but as someone who now knew exactly how much her presence rattled the system. Her dinner with Langford had clarified more than she expected. He wasn't her savior, and she wasn't his charity case. They were two people with bruised pasts and complicated motives, but both staring down the same beast from different angles. Greed, injustice, the slow bleed of a city's soul. She had no illusions. The fight would get worse before it got better. Her desk greeted her with 2 new folders, both requests from the East Side Coalition for neighborhood meetings, and a note from Claire scribbled across a yellow sticky. Good firestorm last week. Ready for round 2? She smiled, then glanced up just in time to see Monica Green enter the workspace. Their eyes met. No smile, no wave. But this time, Monica didn't look away. Progress. By noon, Maya was in back-to-back calls with community reps, mostly coordinating logistics for a new pilot. The community first listening tour. It was Claire's brainchild, but Maya had poured herself into it. Instead of expecting people to come downtown, Second Light would go to them holding pop-up booths, block parties, and church luncheons across the city. It was simple, human, revolutionary, somehow. At 2:30 p.m., Monica knocked lightly on Maya's desk. Got a second? Maya nodded, surprised. Monica rarely initiated conversation. We need to talk, she said. Maya followed her to a small meeting room near the corner, past the main conference area. Monica closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed. There's talk, she began, that the board is meeting next week to vote on reallocating certain funds. Maya raised an eyebrow. Reallocating? Pulling from Second Light's operating budget and folding parts of it into Halston's real estate fund. Maya's chest tightened. That would gut our outreach. And hand it right back to developers. Monica nodded grimly. Langford's pushing back hard. But he's one man. And there are rumors. What kind of rumors? That Langford's new community hire, she said, eyes locked on Maya, was never vetted. That your diner story is more PR than policy. Maya's stomach turned. I've been hearing whispers since the Parker Street confrontation, Monica added. They want you gone. Quietly. Of course. Pushed out under the guise of professionalism. Maya stayed still. And what do you think? Monica hesitated. I think you shook something loose, and they hate it. I think the people we serve are finally being seen, and that scares them. But I also think you need allies. Real ones, not just Langford. People like me. That caught Maya off guard. You came at me hard in that first meeting, she said. I did, Monica replied. Because I've seen too many rising stars burn out. Or sell out. And now? Monica uncrossed her arms. Now I see you're in it for real. And I'd rather fight with you than around you. Maya exhaled, a tension easing she hadn't even noticed. Then let's make it official, she said. You and me. No politics, just the work. They shook hands. It was brief. Firm. The kind of handshake that meant business. That evening, Maya sat on the couch beside Micah, who was finishing a poster for school, the Civil Rights Trail in Georgia. His small fingers traced the path from Atlanta to Selma with red marker. He looked up at her suddenly. Were you scared when you stood up to those survey guys? She thought for a second. Not really scared, she said. But I was mad. And when you're mad for the right reasons, it makes you brave. He nodded solemnly. That's what Miss Keller said. She said bravery doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do it anyway. Maya smiled. You've got a smart teacher. She reminds me of you, he said. Her throat tightened. I had a meeting today, she said softly. Someone tried to warn me that some folks at work want me to leave. That I've made too much noise. Micah put down his marker. Are you going to leave? No, she said. Because when someone tells you to be quiet, that's when you speak louder. If you are affected in Zira, he leaned against her, and she wrapped an arm around his shoulders. Together, they stared at the map he'd drawn lines across old roads, echoes of marches and dreams. Outside, the city glowed in patches. Inside, Maya traced her finger along the line from Selma to Atlanta, and whispered, more to herself than anyone else. We're still walking that road. It was Wednesday morning when the summons arrived. A single-page memo, hand-delivered in a Halston envelope. No preamble, no context. Just a terse line typed in bold. Board meeting Friday, 9 a.m. Mandatory presence, M. Williams. Maya stared at it for a long time, her coffee growing cold in her hand. Claire appeared behind her shoulder without warning. They've moved up the vote, she said quietly. Maya turned. You knew? I suspected, Claire said. They've been circling since Parker Street. This is the test. Maya swallowed. They want me out. Some of them, Claire admitted, but not all. Langford will be there. Monica too. And the rest? People who think community is a buzzword, Claire said. Not a promise. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. Maya barely slept. She pored over project reports, reviewed every budget line she had touched since joining, and highlighted testimonies from the community members she'd worked with. Names, faces, stories, proof of impact. She printed them, bound them, put them in a simple folder labeled Truth. If they were going to question her worth, she would make it impossible to ignore. Friday morning, she wore a black suit borrowed from Claire, tailored just enough to fit her frame, with a single silver pin on the lapel. A small star Micah had made from foil, for luck. He'd said that morning, before kissing her hand, like a knight in training. She rode the elevator to the 40th floor, Halston's executive level. It felt like a different planet. Glass walls, art that cost more than most cars, conference rooms where policies were signed that decided the fate of people who never stepped foot in this building. The boardroom was already half full. Langford stood at the far end of the table, arms folded. He nodded once when he saw her. Monica sat to his right, crisp and unreadable. Claire entered moments later and took a seat behind Maya, like silent backup. Then came the rest. 9 board members in total. Mostly men, mostly white, mostly old. The chairman, Ellis Tate, adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. Let's proceed, he said. Langford didn't wait. Before any votes, Miss Williams will address the board. A few eyebrows raised. Tate leaned back. Is that necessary? I believe it is, Langford said. Unless transparency is no longer a value we claim to uphold. Silence. Then a reluctant nod from the chairman. Maya stood. She didn't bring out her folder. Not yet. She looked them in the eyes, one by one. When I took this job, I wasn't looking for salvation, she began. I was looking for purpose. For a way to fight for people like my neighbors, my son, myself. People who don't get invited to rooms like this. She stepped forward, voice steady. In the past 3 months, I've helped stabilize food access in 5 zip codes. I've brought in volunteers from communities no one at this table has set foot in. I've documented threats from outside developers targeting properties we promised were protected. She paused. Then, slowly, placed the folder on the table. This is the record of what we've done. What I've done. But what this team has done, Monica, Claire, the folks downstairs, you'll find proof of every promise kept and every challenge met. She looked directly at Tate. What you won't find is a single dollar misspent, or a single motive that wasn't rooted in justice. It not as Ed. Tate folded his hands. Miss Williams, no one is questioning your passion. No. Maya interrupted. You're questioning my presence. Because I didn't come with pedigree. Because I don't speak in polished code. Because I remind you that the people we claim to serve can read a room just as well as any MBA. Someone coughed. Another shifted in their seat. She leaned in slightly. Well, let me be clear. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you accountable. Ison. Langford's mouth twitched with the ghost of a smile. Maya straightened. If this board chooses to dissolve Second Light's funding, you'll do more than erase a program. You'll break faith. With every person who believed Halston meant it when we said we'd do better. She turned, ready to sit but paused. My son asked me last night if I'd be fired for telling the truth. I told him I didn't know, but I said if I was, at least I'd go down speaking it. Then she sat, quiet, unflinching. The room was still. Langford broke the silence. All in favor of preserving Second Light's full funding and formally affirming Miss Williams' position with board